Hi, I'm back. Due to the overwhelming demand, and by that I mean maybe like two people asked for additional videos about this topic, I'm back to talk a little bit more about the recent analyses that have been used to claim that there was widespread vote tampering in Michigan, including to address some of the responses that the original author of those analyses has made to the critiques of his analysis. Now, I don't think he was responding directly to me. I expect he's responding to the YouTube account that has like, I don't know, 500,000 subscribers instead of like 150. But in any case, just because, there were a few people who were interested, I thought I would chime back in one more time. I'm not going to say last again, but one more time to talk about some of the things that are going on. If you're new here and you don't know what I'm talking about, you might want to go back to a previous video that I will link, if I can figure out how, within this YouTube clip here, so you can understand what some of the controversy is. But just as a really quick, just to get us all on the same page, a really quick overview is that this particular analysis here was shown to support the idea that there was voter fraud because you see this pattern of the flat line followed by the linear-like descent after some threshold cutoff around 0.3, 0.4, somewhere in there. All right, and the reason that this was used the claim was that you would not see this pattern under normal voting circumstances or under, when there's not vote tampering. That linear trend, the sort of flat line followed by the linear trend, can only arise when there's been vote tampering, because the normal thing you would expect that plot to look like is a flat line. Okay, so that is sort of the original claim. Now, Shiva, who made the original claim, came back with a follow-up video in which he has completely changed his tune, and now the what you expect to see is not the flat line, but is instead this parabola. So a few days ago, the claim was there's vote tampering because under normal circumstances what you would see is this flat line. And now the claim is that there is vote tampering because what you would expect to see is this parabola. And so if you're paying attention at all, or if you're at all willing to consider the possibility that this guy is full of shit, I think this would be your first clue that this guy is completely full of shit, right? He's sort of moving the goalposts. He's completely changing his tune without even acknowledging that his previous claims were false. So there's point one. But I actually want to talk a little bit about what I agree with him on. So in this case, he claims that this parabola is what you would expect under normal circumstances. And, that is something I agree with, actually. If you're interested in the model I'm using to determine or to generate curves that I think could occur under completely normal circumstances in which there is no vote tampering, see, for a more in-depth treatment, the video I'm linking here. And for a less in-depth treatment, a little quicker one with some more visuals, the video I'm linking here. But in any case, that sort of parabola is, again, within the class of curves that we would expect to see under normal voting circumstances. So under the model that I'm proposing as like literally the most boring model in the world, literally the sort of bare bones, this is what you would expect to happen if everything is pretty homogeneous across the population. It's, there's no vote tampering at all. We would see a curve very much like the one he points to as normal, in the case where there is, for example, not a whole lot of difference between the probability of defecting if you're Democrat and Republican, but there is a significant difference in the rate at which people from those two groups choose to vote straight ticket. And so again, that parabola, I agree, is within the range of normal results that we would see under normal circumstances. But again, this is different than what he was saying a few days ago, so keep that in mind. I would also add that, the other curves that he's pointing to as evidence of fraud are also within this class of curves. These are also curves we would expect to see when nothing's going on. And again, to understand what I mean when nothing is going on, to understand how I'm claiming that this is what you would expect to see when there is no vote tampering, go back to the video that is linked here. In any case, I agree with that. That parabola is normal, and in fact, my model, that if he did actually watch my video, which I doubt, but if he did, would have been described as, mathematicians doing, I believe the word was pecuniary analysis, which I don't think that means what he thinks it means, but in any case, The parabola he's now claiming is a completely normal thing is anticipated by my model. So, you know, you're welcome. I agree with that. I agree with that claim. Okay, and so the final thing I want to talk about is actually fitting my model to some data. I personally don't really think it's necessary. The idea that there were sort of qualitative claims made, like if you observe a curve that takes this sort of qualitative form, then that can only result due to vote tampering, and I can show, we can see curves that take this form when there's no vote tampering. For me, that's enough, but I understand why folks might want to see how well we do when we actually try to fit these curves to real data. And so I did that in one case. I took the data again from Oakland County. Some people have been kind enough to send me data from different counties. I put everything up eventually on GitHub. I do have a day job, so it might take me a little bit. But I will put everything up on GitHub so you can see how I'm fitting the curves. It was pretty straightforward, just sort of minimizing the squared error, but there was a little trick to it. In any case, what we can see when we fit the model to the data from Oakland County, so again, this plot will look familiar to you if you've been sort of following what's going on here. So on the y-axis, we have the excess Trump votes. On the x-axis, we have this baseline. And when I fit my model to this data, we get the line that's going down there. It's the purple line. And so I would say this offers a pretty good fit to this data. You might see that the residuals on the lower end tend to be negative. There is not a whole lot of data down there. So I think, based on the loss function that I chose, I'm not super surprised that there are some regions where it's, not sort of tailored exactly to that shape. But you can see that there are parameters that fit the data just as well, I would say, as the sort of random straight followed by linear curves that Shiva, inventor of email, by the way, not the email you use to send messages to each other, that's email total landscaping. Anyway, I would say that this fits about as well as, or even better than the lines he's drawing on there. If you are really married to the idea that there needs to be this flat curve in the beginning, or this flat part followed by this descending part, by hand I just kind of fit this. This isn't an official fit or anything, but I found some parameters for the model that I have described that give that shape as well. And so we can see that, under the model that I proposed previously to describe a world in which there is no vote tampering, there are parameters of that model which result in data or curves that look very, very similar to what we're observing in the data that's used to claim tampering. Okay, so that's it for now. Thank you to everybody who has been in touch about this analysis. Thank you to everybody who has engaged in really nice and respectful ways. It's been a pleasure to see some of the comments, the nice ones, of course, and be able to talk about what the analysis means. So yeah, feel free to keep commenting. Feel free to subscribe if you feel so inclined. And I do think this will be the last video on this topic, but who knows, maybe something else will come up that compels me to come back. If anyone else has any other topics they'd like to hear about from me, feel free to let me know. I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to keep doing this YouTube thing. It seemed like a fun thing to experiment for now. But if there's anything else interesting that comes up where I feel like I have something relevant to say, maybe you'll see me here again.